where you made the state playoffs, and the one year you didn't make it, in '87, you deserved to make it.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, just the legend of success and those years, and bridging the gaps. Say you won in the '70s, you won in the '80s, you won in the '90s, and talk a little bit about how different it was coaching from the '70s to the '80s to the '90s, and being able to be successful.
I think the hardest time to be a high school football coach was in the '60s.
Okay. Because
of all the drug problems. I think that the '70s. We were very fortunate and have some very, very good athletes. And in the 80s, the same thing. We lost some state championship games. We lost 2 to Ironwood Haywood, who went on to play 11 years in the NFL. And we were in both football games. The kids never quit. In any of the years, no matter what decade it was, these boys here at North Bergen have never quit on us. And I think that's important. That has been handed down, whether they have any relatives or they've heard stories, or no matter what it is, they've never quit. And I think that there is no difference because of that. It's part of the system. We're going to go out, we're going to play, and we're not going there to lose. But times have changed. There's no doubt. Things have gone full circle. I think that there are more one-parent homes today in these areas. And I think throughout the country, you see so many young guys being interviewed on television, and they're thanking their grandmother or their mother, and there's so many times the father is never mentioned. And I think that's all over. So I think we've gone from Polish, Italian, Irish, even Jewish when I first came here, to this time, Italians, of course, until this time now, we still have some of those people, but we have more of a Hispanic influence. And our kids have not changed. They still play with that same attitude. And I think part of that is also our Pop Warner program. Kids who have played for us now are coaching in the Pop Warner program. And that's a good feeder, because they hear stories about, well, when I played, and we were in Giant Stadium, and they set a tone which makes it easier to coach these kids, because they come in, they think that their class is going to be a state champion. So that helps, no matter, it's a great help.
Talk a little bit about you personally, bridging the generation gap a little bit. When you first started, you were 22, you were like a friend and a mentor. Then, as you grew older a little bit, you became like a father figure to a lot of your players. Now, you're at the point where you're not only a grandfather figure, but you're a grandfather. And talk a little bit about that in terms of you being able to survive through the ages, and watching the way you're perceived and the way you're looked at change over those years.
I think that what you have to do is they have to understand, and when a new group comes in every year, we always talk to them about, we will be there for you, no matter what you do. Even if you're wrong, we're going to be there for you. We'll know you're wrong, and we'll let you know that we know you're wrong. But we're not going to walk away from you and hide from you. We'll do everything we can to support you. But you have to be on the same page with us. And you have to know how to give them that look, and you have to know how to put your arm around them. And I think if you continue to always do the same thing, I have almost everyone who coaches with me played for me. So they're always going to be in their ear, about the type person that the coach is. And so you have that on your side. And I think that I haven't had to change because of that, because I've kept great coaches around me who almost all the time there was someone who played for me. In the beginning, I inherited some coaches when I came here. But then, after that period, anyone who has coached for me has played for us. And that's a great bind. That's like glue that binds the whole book.
Talk a little bit about the fact that you have, 46 years as a head football coach, correct? Right? That's the number?
Yeah.
47? Okay.
46.
46, okay. As a head football coach. And you still stick true to your roots in the philosophy that you you teach your teams. You've been a Delaware wing T offense for as long as I known you, and you still remain that way to this day.
Yeah.
And you coach your teams the 27 years that I've known you. You've coached your teams the same exact way that you did then that you do now. And is it almost to the point where if it's not broke, don't fix it? That thing?
Well, I think that's part of it, but we now use part of the gun. We use parts of Utah offense, parts of the shotgun offense, because you have the athletes, and that you have to coach what you have. I mean, even Penn State changed.
Right.
You have to. We still incorporate the basics of a Delaware, but you still have to coach what you have. You can't say, I'm going to make you learn this, when you have to infuse other things. So by the infusion of what you're doing is not to play up to the times, but to play up to the type athlete you have. In 78, our thing was that once we had the football, we were going to put it in the end zone. And we averaged that year, it was 17 plays to get into the end zone would mean nothing. 17 plays without a mistake. We probably averaged 14 plays per touchdown that year. And our kids didn't make mistakes. But we had big, strong kids. And, in 78, we had a great running back in Capozzi, who was, quick and strong. And today, you get different type athletes. So you have to play to their abilities, or you're not going to be there.
Right. Talk a little bit about some of those individual athletes that you had over the years, and in your mind, I have two kids that I think are your two best of all time, and let's see if we're on the same page. But who do you think, in your mind, are two of the best players that you've ever had the chance to coach?
Well, I never like to do that.
Okay.
I think that there's about. I think Eddie Duran was one of the best athletes that ever came through here. I think Evan Rodriguez was right there with him. Those are the two. Those were the people who could do anything. They could play defense, they could punt, they could kick off, they could throw the football, they could run with the football. After that, my next three would be Mark D'Onofrio.
There's another. Okay.
Kenny Bello.
Yep.
And my son Greg.
There you go.
And I say that
we agree on something for the first time.
And the reason I say those three is because they were journeymen. They were guys who just came to play. They were there was no way. Those three would just. The first two had all the gifts in the world. The next three were guys who just worked every day, practiced as hard as they ever played in a football game.
Lunch pail type of guys.
Yeah, lunch pail guys. And they all went on, all of them have gone on to do well. Mark had an unfortunate circumstance, being drafted by Green Bay and then getting hurt in one of the first few games of the year. But he's a college coach today, and he's doing a good job.
And he still has he still will always say that he was able to play in the NFL. So That's something that, okay. How about how blessed have you been? You mentioned your son Greg. How blessed have you been to be able to coach all three of your boys, and now take it even one step further to now this year have the chance to coach your grandson?
I think that it was an honor to coach my sons. I had conversations about that twice. Once was with Lou Rotino at Union, and I said, Lou, don't send your son somewhere else. You coach him. Just have the courage to coach him. And he's no different than anybody else. And the other was Greg Toll. And Toll asked me when he was at Hackensack one night before we played, what's it like to coach your son? And I said, well, if you don't coach him, that means you don't have the courage to coach him. And he all three of his sons, he took one out of one school and brought him to Hackensack when he was there. He left Hackensack to go to Ramapo as an assistant to coach the other boy. And then the last one, when he went to Bosco, he took him with him. And anybody who has coached their kids, as long as they know how to handle them, they're no different than anybody else. And as long as you deal with them like that, there's no problem. And all three of my sons have different personalities.
I was just going to say that. Vastly
different personalities. But, I just think that you have to, coach them and talk to them like you'd talk to anybody else. Now I have my grandson, and he was very fortunate. We were unfortunate because of injuries, But he's a decent athlete, and he proved that he could play on a varsity level as a freshman, and he played. And he's no different than anybody else.
But how big of a thrill is that to be able to